Today in the EU, will North Macedonia jeopardize its EU accession process? North Macedonia is closer than it has ever been to becoming a member of the European Union, but the words of the country's new president-elect and her party might put it all at risk. Hello and welcome. I'm Giada Santana, and this is Today in the EU. North Macedonia elected for the first time a female president last week, Gordana Silianovska-Davkova. As she accepted the title, she said, I will act as a president to all citizens. My path first led to the Balkans. Of course, Brussels will not be left out. Yet, the words that came next were inflammatory in Brussels and across the EU. The president's speech reignited a 30-year-long name dispute with Greece, raised tensions with Bulgaria, and was condemned by leaders worldwide. To understand why, I'm joined in the studio by Sarantis Michalopoulos, journalist and senior network editor at Euractiv. Hi, Sarantis.
Hello.
North Macedonia elected last Sunday its first female president, Gordana Silianovska-Davkova. She accepted the role and she delivered a speech that raised more than a few eyebrows in Brussels. Why were her words controversial?
Yeah, first of all, it was not only Brussels that reacted. There were reactions across Europe and even in the United States. And there is a reason for that. Essentially, she called her country Macedonia instead of North Macedonia, which is the official constitutional name.
Yes, the country has been at the center of a very long dispute surrounding its name. Can you tell us more about the context?
We have to look back at the history to understand what exactly happened there. In 2018, Greece and North Macedonia signed the so-called Prespa agreement, which in practice resolved the 25-year-old name dispute. Before 2018, the official name was Macedonia, but it was not recognized by Greece.
Why did Greece enforce such a hardline position when it came to banning the name Macedonia?
The reason why it was not recognized by Athens is that Macedonia represents a geographical region covering the northern part of Greece, Bulgaria, North Macedonia, Serbia, some parts of Albania as well. And the government in Skopje before 2018 raised statues of Alexander the Great, and therefore Greeks, feared that the neighboring country is trying to steal parts of its own ancient history. With the Prespa agreement, this is over. That was over in 2018. What it practically changed was, first of all, we had the addition of the word North before Macedonia.
Right.
And another element was the fact that North Macedonia, according to the Prespa agreement, wouldn't be able to claim anything related to Greece's ancient history. After this agreement, all the statues in the capital of North Macedonia were removed. Greeks opened the way for North Macedonia to join the NATO and the European Union. In a nutshell, it took so many years to resolve the issue, with huge political cost for both governments back then.
I think to many, the timing of this might be hard to comprehend. North Macedonia recently became the 30th member of NATO. That happened in March 2020. 2 years later, Bulgaria finally lifted its veto, allowing the opening of talks for the accession of North Macedonia to the European Union. Why would the country jeopardize the accession process now that the state is closer than it has ever been to becoming a member of the European Union?
I think it's pure politics. I don't think that the new government wants to derail its EU orientation. But I think it's pure politics in the sense that this is the Balkan region. In principle, the Balkan societies are conservative. That's why the Prespa agreement was very important back then, because the governments, the progressive governments that were in power in 2018, they managed to greenlight this agreement, essentially swimming against the ocean. And both governments, both prime ministers back then, Alexis Tsipras in Greece and Zoran Zaev in North Macedonia, paid the cost for that. They're not prime ministers anymore. They even intervened yesterday, both of them, after this incident, and they promised to take joint initiatives in order to save the name change deal, the Prespa agreement, which is super important because it shows that there is a part of the Balkan societies that is progressive, but it's a minority.
Speaking about the stances taken by the West, what figures in the Union have been the most vocal about this diplomatic incident?
All the European institutions essentially reacted to the incident in Skopje, from Charles Michel, who described it as disappointing. Ursula von der Leyen, the European Commission president, made it clear that it's a precondition actually for North Macedonia to implement the Prespa agreement in order to join the European Union. Similarly, Athens reacted, the government in Berlin as well. So the message of the Europeans was common and clear. The European path of North Macedonia passes through the implementation of the Prespa agreement. And again, it's not a coincidence that they reacted so quickly. 1 month before the European elections, they really don't want instability in the Balkan region. And at the same time, the West has made it clear they want the Balkan region to get rid of grey zones.
What do you mean by grey zone in the Balkan region?
Grey zones basically means countries whose societies are divided over whether they should join the West or they will be influenced by Russia.
And the president-elect comes from a party that's been known for its nationalist stances. What else do we know about VMRO?
The new leader of VMRO, Mitskoski, he took over the party in 2017. He took over a collapsing party after what happened with the former prime minister and leader of VMRO, Nicola Gruevski, who fled to Hungary. He's now protected by Viktor Orban after he was charged with corruption. When he took over, he promised to focus on economy, create, tens of thousands of jobs, etc., etc. But on foreign matters, he is considered, the new leader of VMRO is considered nationalists, and many analysts in both countries project tensions not only with Greece but also with Bulgaria, especially in the case of recognizing the Bulgarian minority in the constitution of North Macedonia. So if he follows this rhetoric, I don't think that the Europeans will turn the blind eye. We live in quite sensitive times.
What do you foresee as possible scenarios post-June EU elections?
The EPP itself, they made it clear that they were really disturbed by what happened and they're not going to tolerate this kind of behaviors. So according to our information in Euractiv, the European People's Party is really frustrated with this incident. An official from the EU center-right basically told us that after the European elections on the 9th of June, there will be a general house cleaning, checking the membership of some controversial national parties, and North Macedonia's VMRO is going to top the list. Unless VMRO wants to join the far-right ID group or the hard-right ECR, I think that the strategy they are following will basically lead them to a deadlock.
Right, because the president in her speech, on one hand, committed to feminizing and Europeanizing the country, but yet her words were in open violations of these two fundamental conditions that you were talking about, right? On one hand, the mention of Bulgarians in the constitution, on the other, the use of the term Macedonia. So what could be the strategy behind this announcement?
To be honest, I think it's a purely political stance to satisfy the conservative hardline electorate. But if you want to join the European Union, this is not the right strategy, definitely.
How have the past tensions between Greece and North Macedonia affected the political position that Athens is holding right now?
During the negotiations of the Prespa agreement, Greece's new democracy, when they took the power, they accepted the Prespa agreement. They disagreed in opposition. When they took the power, they said that the state has continuity, so we need to implement the international agreements of our country. The first signals from VMRO are not the same. The main opposition in Greece, for instance, when it was the Syriza party, the leftist Syriza party that signed the Prespa agreement. Now it's the main opposition in Greece. And it's now putting pressure on the conservative government to ratify 3 pending protocols that are part of the PESPA agreement.
Γιατί 5 χρόνια διακυβέρνησης Νέας Δημοκρατίας, κυβέρνησης Μητσοτάκη, κυβερνήσεων Μητσοτάκη.
For almost 4 years now, the New Democracy government has been avoiding this ratification because of the far-right faction within the Conservative Party. So everything is about politics in this case. Now, the main opposition leftist party, Syriza, is trying to take advantage of the situation and put more pressure on the government to ratify these protocols. So I guess that logic will prevail in the end.
How important is this diplomatic incident for the future of relations between North Macedonia and the European Union?
My information suggests that Athens will put the veto option on the table in case that things get worse. But I personally doubt we will get there.
Why?
Overall, the Balkans EU integration is a priority for the Greek foreign policy. It has been a priority for the last at least 10 years. I don't suspect that Greeks will put pressure on North Macedonia. On the other hand, I suspect that the European Union, the EU institutions, will put pressure on them, exactly for the reasons we mentioned before. No grey zones in the Balkan region, no instability. Let's not forget what's happening in Ukraine and what Russia wants to do in the Balkan region. I don't see any veto coming from Athens, exactly because the pressure from Brussels and Washington will be much higher.
I'm Giada Santana, and this was Euractivist Today in the EU podcast. Visit Euractivist to stay on top of the latest news, sign up for our podcast newsletter, and if you haven't subscribed yet, you can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever it is that you get your podcasts. Leave us a star review on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or your favorite streaming platform. It will really help us spread the word about our work. This episode was produced by Miriam Sanz de Tejada, Nicoletta Yonta, and me.